Just about 2,500 years ago, north of what's now Mexico City, Teotihuacan was built on purpose. The purpose of this place was to show human beings our creative mastery, how we move intent into form, or light into matter, or nawal into tonal. Now, the way people undertook or went through Teotihuacan was as a journey of their own making. They would arrive at the citadel, and they could look to the north for 2.5 miles and see the path that they were to travel. Now, the first half of the path was very inward focused and personal. In this part of the journey, the traveler or the student left behind everything that did not serve them on their path to creative mastery. They would let go of the doubt and the fear and the small thinking. And in this first half of their journey, they would pass through 5 plazas, each of which represented an element of the planet. So they would pass through earth and water and fire and air and ether. And each of these elements would ally with the traveler to help them leave behind, like shedding the skin of a snake, what they did not need. And when they journeyed through these 5 plazas, the traveler would land at the base of the Pyramid of the Sun. Now, this was a huge pyramid, second only in size on our planet to the Great Pyramid at Giza. And so when the journeyer was ready, they would head up to the top of the pyramid to touch the sun, to understand their purpose, to connect with their mission in life. And with that information gathered, they would head down the pyramid and begin the second half of their journey. Now, this half of the journey was very different in character than the first. It was noisy, and there were musicians and dancers and makers and crafters and families with children blowing whistles that sounded like eagles. In this half of the journey, with their intent, their purpose, their passion understood, the students would practice taking that and making it into form. All with a view to the Pyramid of the Moon at the end of this avenue. Now, the fact of the matter is, all of us have this creative mastery, this creative superpower. It's our human superpower. And it's ours for the accessing anytime. But sometimes in our day-to-day busyness, or we get caught up in our minds and our doings, we forget that it's there. We become disconnected. And in fact, all we have to do to reconnect with our creative superpower is to remember and to feel a time when something so exciting and so big was bursting out of us. And in reconnecting to that, we can remember what it is to be human. Now, as an architect, I often wondered, what if I could use my creative superpower and the creative superpower of my team and of my clients to work together to make the built environment better? Sadly, most of the built environment that we experience in our day-to-day lives is underwhelmingly developed. It doesn't even begin to reach its potential in terms of helping people or communities or the planet, in that fact, thrive. Places are made with a tactical outcome in mind, most of the time by people who probably won't ever occupy that place. So when I was in college, I made a bunch of sketches, like most architects do. But I found these sketches about 10 years ago, and I had to laugh at myself because when I read through the words, it reminded me of one of my own creative superpowers that I had completely forgotten about. And that is that I love to design in dialogue. My professor would give me a project, and immediately, rather than begin to make shapes and forms, I would engage in a dialogue. I'd say, what is the purpose of this project? And what are we trying to achieve? And how will we know if we succeeded? I was actually having a dialogue with a client and architect, and I was playing both roles. It was only when I answered these questions that I could put pencil to paper. Well, finding these sketches helped me fortify and clarify what I want to do now with my clients in our practice when we make communities together. And I wondered if I could demystify the design process and invite clients in to the making and use their creative superpower, would the places we make together be better? And if our clients knew their places and knew and saw their ideas in their places, would it help them do what they do better? And if that happens, would they be empowered in their places? After all, when we're done with a project, it's not ours. It belongs to whomever the project belongs to. So we collect all this information, we put it together, we mash it up with other information, and we begin to set up options and find synergies between the creative input of our clients and our practical issues that architects bring. And it's in these options that we can begin to show clients have them test fit what works best for them. Now, the first step of this process is my team and I being transparent listeners. We have to listen so we can draw out all of that information before we begin to shape a form or a material or a place. But to listen well, we have to remove all of the filters that we have. You know, human beings are really terrible listeners, right? You can be listening to somebody and they won't even have the sentence finished, and already our minds are jumping forward to completing the sentence or correcting what was just said, or even, can't wait to tell something about ourselves, right? So we're very impatient and terrible listeners. And so how do we get to that clarity, that transparency, so we can hear? We have to pull away all of the layers, a mask, if you will, an identity, an ego, a mind, all words for the same thing, so that we can hear information clearly and not distort it or change it. And at the same time, when we hear clearly, we can then begin to make work going forward with that same clarity. If we don't do this, then we bias what we make with our own beliefs, our own cultural precedents. And we can't invite others into the making of their place without these biases. So my team and I, our first step is to listen with transparency. And it's only then that we can draw out all of the information and mix it up and find relationships and synergies in those options that I mentioned before. Now, here's an example of this. In Turners Falls, Massachusetts, we had a client that was a craft motorcycle company. Now, they made awesome, beautiful motorcycles, and they didn't want to do this by themselves. In fact, they wanted to expand their space, but they also wanted to work with other makers, others who would do the same thing. So as we were conceiving of and building their place, we actually looked at the town itself. And we found that the place where they were located in the bend of the river was actually a place centuries before where First Nations communities came together to trade stories, to trade materials, to trade wares, and to celebrate in community. What an amazing discovery to find that this place where our clients had the intuition to make a community where they could revitalize in a maker community their own space overlapped with a use that happened there hundreds of years before. So we took the models and the cultural elements of the First Nations people and used them and transferred them, drawing on the energy and the intention of that place hundreds of years ago, and translated them into new stories for our client. So the beating drum that gathered all of those groups together over the centuries became the revving engine. And the longhouse became the creative workshop. And the settlement became a making village. And in this way, each option prioritized different elements so that our clients could choose what suited them the best. Now, once this is done, we can get on to all of the things that architects typically do, thinking about scale and material and place and safety and form and beauty. but only when built on a foundation that's clear and strong. Now, working this way can be transformational. Transformation is something that creates permanent and lasting change. So what is it about transformation that amplifies that process? It's awe. Awe is any experience where we take our day-to-day consciousness, our day-to-day reality of where we exist in the world, and blows the doors off of it. So whether it's connecting us to the infinite scale of the universe or the tiniest space between molecules, awe is an experience that changes us forever. Now, accommodated poorly, an experience of awe can be awful, right? We recede, we pull back, we move into fear. Accommodated well, an experience of awe can be awesome, and it can provoke curiosity and engagement and creativity and growth. And in fact, experiences of awe are a necessary component for the evolution of humankind. So we've had clients actually relate to us after a presentation or after a project. You know, Laura, darn you, I can't walk down the street anymore without looking at the world in an entirely new way. I think that's pretty cool. So what are some tools that we use to do this? The first is listening beyond identity, which I touched on that before, but further than listening with transparency beyond our masks and our identity, we work to align our language because communication is essential. So as in the image that's up on the screen, when we say cat, all of us imagine as close to as possible the same image for cat. This ensures that our communication is clear and complete. We work to distinguish ideas from solutions. You see, ideas are not solutions, and we kind of mash them up as humans. So if the idea is light, why would we spend the energy and effort to create a bat signal when a candle would do? The ideas solutions spectrum also introduces the idea of iteration, of try again. We have an idea, we bring it into form. If the form doesn't fit, we revise and revise until we get it just right. Now, working this way is empowering. It's empowering because we make a commitment. When we engage this way and our clients engage, we're committed. With that commitment comes responsibility. With that responsibility comes an investment in the outcome, and that's empowering. And last, we create stories and share stories as a pathway into purpose, as a pathway in to the aspirations of a client. So stories connect people and connect place. And the wonderful thing about stories, as in this image, I was the storyteller one night for this project called Rio Iluminado. And the next night there were 10 storytellers. And the next night there were 100 storytellers. And each storyteller gets to add their own chapter, their own little bit, to make it theirs and to share what's exciting or personal about them. So stories are a way for our clients to connect to what's made or what's being made before the form is complete. And it's a way for them to engage their communities in what's being made before the form is complete. So we don't have to wait until the built environment is done for people to be engaged and excited. They can start investing their energy through stories. So stories, like good places, evolve over time and allow and accommodate new occupants and new chapters in the life of a place. And all of that original intention, all of that original energy was never lost. It's built upon and transformed and reused. So why does this matter? Because when we design places on purpose, we help our clients do what they do better. When our clients do what they do better, they serve their constituents, their stakeholders better, and they benefit, and so on and so on. And so when we all do good work in our place, engaging the creative human superpower of each party, the work amplifies. I can be standing in my space doing my human superpower work. Someone can be standing in their space doing their superpower work, and they all add up. And they all make a difference. So we have an idea, and we move it into form, and each of us have a unique voice, a unique translator that takes that idea into form, and we observe what we make, and we assess it, and then we try again. This is the creative cycle. And as Teotihuacan shows us from the end of the avenue, looking from the top of the Pyramid of the Moon back over that journey, we have an idea. We make it into form, and that form mirrors back to us our intent, our aspirations, our hopes, our ideals. And in that, we can see where we want to make adjustments and what we would like to do the next time. Now, putting something out there in the world is scary. It takes courage, it takes risk. But in fact, the world is waiting for each one of us to put our little bit of magic out there, to have the courage to take that idea and bring it into form. So why and how we make matters. And hopefully along the way, we make the world a better place.